numbers right in a row, 54, 54. So I get x is equal to 54.54 kilometers. So that's one side done. We already have the other last angle done. We only have one more side to go. Call that side y maybe. And I notice that's across from the 81-degree angle. So I use my original information that I found, the sine of 26 over the 25 side, because those were across from each other. And that's going to be equal to the sine of 81 divided by the y. So just like in the previous proportion, these two things are across from each other. So I'm going to take and find out 25 sine of 81. Divided by the sine of 26. And I get 56.33. Kilometers is my y value. So in these first two examples that we've done, we found every single piece. Now they're not always going to ask you to find every single piece, but if you can do either one of these, the investigation or this first example, you can pretty much do any problem with the law of sines. So in number 2, as you're setting this up, what you should see is we have the sine of 80 over x equals the sine of 78 over 17. And when you find your answer by cross multiplying with a proportion like we've been doing in the past, you would multiply these two things that are across from each other and divide by the remainder, which is sine of 78, and you get 17.1. And that 17.1 should be really close to 17 because, again, your two angles are very close together in size. In the third example, you'll notice something very different here. In the third example, you'll notice that they're looking for an angle. Yesterday, we talked about something really important. When you're finding an angle, use the second button. So I set this up the same way. When I write this out, I will say that the sine of angle x over 5 should be the same ratio as the sine of 39 over 12. And I'm going to cross multiply the two numbers and divide by the 12. But when I get done, I didn't find x, I found the sine of x. So I'm going to cross multiply those two things, 5 sine 39 divided by 12, and see what happens. 5 sine 39 divided by 12. And I get 0.2622. 0.2622. And this is not x. This is the sine of x. In order to find your x, you have to do the sine inverse of that. And that's where we hit that second button. So I'm going to go second sine of 0.2622. So second sine 0.2622. And I get 15.2. So the big caution here in number 3 is, since you're looking for an angle, after you get done, you have to inverse sine that. So in numbers 4 and number 5, even though they only give us one angle, we're going to try and use the law of sines, because until further notice, that's all you know how to do. So as I start out my first situation here, I'm going to look for angle x first. In looking for angle x, I notice that the sine of that angle over the side across from it, 4, should be the same relationship as the sine of 110 over 10. So I notice that this is the only relationship that I know for sure, 110 and 10. This is very similar to problem number 3. So I'm going to multiply 4 times the sine of 110, and then I'm going to divide by 10. When I do that, I didn't find x, but I did find the sine of x. So I will have the sine of x equals whatever I get when I multiply those out. So 4 sine 110 divided by 10. And I get 0.3759. 0.3759. In order to find my x, I'm going to inverse sine that. That's where I hit that second button. So second sine of 0.3759. And I get 22.08. 22.08. Which is the length of the side, or sorry, which is the size of the angle in degrees. So now I've found that. The good news is if I want to now, I can find my other angle. So I know that the angle that I'm looking for that's left over, this angle right here, I can find using my rules of 180 degrees. So I can go 180 minus 110 minus 22.08. 47.92. Thank you. And that's this angle right here in degrees. And then I have one side left to find. I need to find the side that's called y. So if I find that side that's called y here, what I can do is I can say the sine of the angle I just found, 47.92, all over the y value, should be the same as the relationship we had in the orange, which was the sine of 110 divided by 10. And then again I use my proportion techniques where I cross multiply those two numbers and divide by what's left over. So I'm going to go with the 10, and this time I'm not going to have to do the second sine because I'm finding a side. 10 sine of 47.92 10 sine 47.92 divided by what was it divided by? 110? Or the sine of 110? Thank you. Sine 110. And I get 7.9. Does that sound right? So my y is 7.9. Okay, this last one, which is very similar to number 4, I noticed that the two sides, or the two pieces, excuse me, that I know that are across from each other are the 9 and the 65-degree angle. So when I set up my proportions, I'm going to start off using those two pieces to begin with. So in other words, the sine of 65 over 9 equals, and the only other piece that I know for sure is the 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find I'm going to find this angle right here actually, B. So I'm going to say that's equal to the sine of B all over 8. Now when I get done, again, I don't have the B, I have the sine of B. So I cross multiply these two pieces, 8 sine of 65, and divide by 9. And I get 0.8056. And that's equal to the sine of B. I don't want the sine of B, so I have to do the inverse sine to find that angle. So I do second sine, 0.8056, and I get 53.67. And that's in degrees. Now the good news about that is that means I can easily find my y value. Because if I'm looking for my y value here, all I would have to do is take 180 minus off the 65 and minus off the 5367. Louder. 61.33. Thank you. 33 degrees. And so that'll be my angle Y. And then I'm going to leave it to you to find the very last piece. Do we have to find anything else? X, right?
Yeah.
So in finding X, you're going to go with the sine of 61.33 divided by X equals the sine of 65 divided by 9. When you get done, and I'm not going to do this one for you, but I will write the answer for you, you should find out, when you try this on your own, that X is equal to 8.71. So you try that on your own, and that's what you should get.